you know they give you 7 birth certificates in France? And I remember saying to the lady the second time around when I was a bit more experienced, I was like, why do we need 7? What happens when I run out of 7? And she goes, we'll print you another 7. If you don't say bonjour to the guy in the bakery in France, it's the equivalent of going into a cafe in Sydney and just slapping the guy on the cheek. And when I moved here, I was working as a journalist, and I would eat a pre-prepared sandwich at my desk, and the French people couldn't believe it. They would look at me with disgust almost. Please do me the favor of at least leaving half a day on your itinerary totally blank, with nothing to see, and just walk around. I really think there's endless stories in this city, and if I ever do run out, tomorrow's a new day and there's endless stories happening tomorrow as well.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Fab Expat. Today we're joined by a true pioneer of the expat community and a master storyteller who's been soundtracking the streets of Paris for a bit more than a decade now. From the New York Times, he even called this show one of the most transportative podcasts, and with more than 4 million downloads, it's safe to say that he has built himself his own media empire. He is the voice, the creator, and the ultimate wanderer behind the Eiffel Tower. Oliver, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, great. So I have loads of questions for you. My voice is a bit off, but I'm sure you're talkative enough for the both of us.
I'm ready, let's do it. Let's do it.
So you're kind of a legend for me because I saw like more than 4 million downloads. I don't know if I could call that views, but so how do you balance, because you've been doing this for a while, still being authentic because you've been doing this for like a decade, with kind of the constant pressure of those, algorithm on social medias? Like, how do you balance that?
Well, thanks for saying that nice thing about me first. But I think the authenticity is the most important thing. So like I am always aware of like telling the best story or doing the best episode I can, and that's sort of the algorithm. I sort of just don't care about it, Like I don't. In the beginning, I was really trying to make it popular, and then when it became established, I stopped caring actually. So I don't know what the rules are for how often you should post here or there or on Instagram or whatever.
Oh, you don't even think about it?
I don't follow those rules. I'm the opposite, which probably is for worse rather than for better in terms of building a brand. But
that seemed to be working.
Well, I think it worked, and so then now I've got an audience that likes the podcast, and I make sure that's always the best thing that could be, and try not to think about anything else really. I'll still post stuff.
Because I think one of your first episodes was like back in 2016.
Yep.
Okay. And so if you could go back to your former self, like a decade ago, what kind of piece of advice you would give yourself? Kind of mistakes you shouldn't have done, or things you might have done different?
I think that I'd go back and whisper to myself in my ear. I'd probably say, just be yourself. I don't know if I wasn't myself in the beginning, but I was probably I was probably thinking too much about it. Like I'd scripted a lot, and I was worried about the time and everything. And then gradually, I stopped caring about all that and just focused on having an authentic, a real conversation with people. And then, way more boring and more practical, what I'd whisper to myself is, because I've done 500 episodes now, I wish I'd kept better notes on everything. Or I wish I'd asked every single person 2 more questions after that I could reuse for other episodes. But that's hindsight. I mean, I'm really happy with the way it's gone. But yeah, 10 years, geez.
So it's been 10 years indeed. You said I complimented you, but that's not just me, because I saw the New York Times who called your podcast transportative.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difference between the Paris people imagine, fantasize about, and actually what it's really like? Because you've also been around quite a few years. I think,
well, to live here or to visit here, you think?
Oh, well, let's try both.
Well, I think with Paris is a city like any other city, which means there's there's crime and stuff here. You might tread in some mess that a dog's left behind. There's all these things that people like you and me, we don't talk about them so much. It would be weird for me to do an episode on the messiest street of Paris or the worst crime attacks in Paris, So like a lot of people who are sharing the city, including me, I don't even. It's not that I ignore. I just don't. That's not a focus. So I think for people who are coming to visit, you got to realize this is a real city, and all sorts of things happen. And then for people who are coming to live here, it can be a very complicated city as well, in ways that you never imagined.
You're talking paperwork there.
Paperwork is it's one of my least favorite things, and I learned fairly recently, because I have 2 children now. It starts from birth. They give you they give you 7 birth certificates in France. So I had my firstborn son. They give 7 pieces of paper, which at the time everything was so new. I didn't really think about it. But by the time we had our second kid, and they gave me the 7, and the idea is you give 1 to the daycare, you give 1 to the whatever healthcare. Everyone gets 1. And I remember saying to the lady the second time around, when I was a bit more experienced, I was like, "Why do we need 7? What happens when I run out of 7?" And she goes, "We'll print you another 7." I was like, couldn't this all be online? And she's like, "That's not how we do it here."
You can ask online.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a thing that you've got to be prepared for, the paperwork. And as much as I can grumble about it, that feels like it's here to stay, I think.
Okay, so I think we kind of the negative aspects, which is good. We should deep dive into that. Would you have an example of some like overly overhyped, I don't know how to say this, kind of bucket list experience, all those websites, because you do those tours as well.
Yeah.
So...
You want me to tell you an overrated bucket list place here?
Yeah.
Will I get in trouble if I say a company name? What if they're watching? I'll do it.
I don't mind.
I don't mind either. There's, I'll tell you what, I think I see a lot of people that, gosh, can't believe I'm going to say this, but there's a place called Angelina.
Oh, I know. Yeah, chocolate place. Yeah.
I got no time for it. There's one on Rue de Rivoli there's always 50 people. I walked past it yesterday.
It's very Instagrammable.
Very Instagrammable, but I'll give you a better idea. There's a red rope there that people lining up like sheep or something to get in there. If it was me, if I was telling someone what to do, I'd say next door there's a hotel called Le Maurice.
Oh, yes.
Which I love.
Cédric Grolet is a chef there.
There you go. Yeah. So probably you get better chocolate there. You probably get equally good hot chocolate in a way more beautiful setting, and you're not lining up. 100 out of 100 times I'd tell people to do that. And that's not just for Angelina, with all due respect. But I mean, there's often, your time is your most precious thing when you come to Paris. Why line up for half an hour for anything, really?
Oh, I do think Angelina and Carrette and those, well, not all, but some of those touristic places, I think it's good. I think the chocolate is good. Yeah, personally, I've been there a few times, with some of my friends, because they wanted to see this place, and I think it's.
But when your friends,
I wouldn't say it's overrated, but like you, I hate being in a queue. I think you can have similar experiences in much more, less busy places and more enjoyable, because
you're not pushed away. Why be where the crowds are? When your friends went back home, do you think they went back and went, "That hot chocolate we had was so good"? I bet they forgot it. I feel like so many people are just ticking things up. If I were to change the answer a bit, don't just tick things off the whole time when you come to Paris. Seek out some real experiences.
Therefore, I have a bit of a controversial question for you. Do you think, the, I would say, American dream, or whatever equivalent, British dream, Australian dream, but so this dream of moving to Paris and finding a magical lifestyle that we all imagine with the delicious food and all the fancy romantic lifestyle, do you think it's still realistic in 2026?
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely. Do you think I'd say no?
Well, care to elaborate?
Well, I think since for more than 2,000 years, people have been coming to Paris. The Romans came here and they liked it, right? So people have been doing it since
That's a very good answer.
I think people think that there were these glory years of, let's say, Ernest Hemingway or whatever. I read some of his books. It didn't sound that perfect here. He had troubles as well. But even more recently, everyone thinks it's like Midnight in Paris, that the glory years are gone. But I came here 10 years ago or 12 years ago. I think I came at a great time. I meet people who've been here for longer who lament that the old days were better. I feel like I think we're in the great days of Paris right now. I love living here and getting to explore this city.
Well, I'm biased. Obviously, I'm French. I love Paris. Yeah. But, for example, reading Victor Hugo, who used to live in Paris, it looked like quite dark times.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I don't know when was the perfect time.
Exactly.
But it seems like a good time to me. But I'm biased.
It's today. Today's the good time. If I didn't like the city, I would move. Like, I'm here because I like it. So sometimes people, they're asking me about how I get ideas or how I still like the city. I'm like, it should be clear that I like the city because I'm...
Well, it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, I still love it. If I ended up hating what I do, then it'll be over. Believe me.
Do you have a cheat code? You know, because, well, algorithm love this stuff. Do you have a cheat code for not looking like a tourist when visiting Paris, for example?
Yeah,
or
definitely.
What's the red flag that says, okay, you're a tourist?
Yep, it's all about spatial awareness. Spatial awareness. The amount of people that come here, I just walked past the Arc de Triomphe on the way here, and fair enough, it's the Arc de Triomphe and it's beautiful, but people were just walking, stopping and taking pictures, and I knew that would happen, so I didn't mind. But that happens also on the small streets of the Marais. People aren't aware that there are people behind. This is a living city. There are people who are going to work or who are picking up their kids from school, and I can see why people get grumpy when they almost bash into a selfie stick wielding American or whatever, you know. So just being aware of what's around you, trying not to wear berets too often. I think that's maybe a bit of a red flag.
And there is a way to wear a beret that it's funny. This is one of the things I could spot on an American.
Yeah.
Well, a non-French, because like you wear the beret as if it's like a hat.
Yeah.
Like a cap,
Yeah.
and like we just put it on top.
Yeah.
But it's not like heavily. You're not buried into the
Yeah,
beret. So that's an American way to wear it.
I feel like, and this might be wrong or maybe insensitive or something, but I feel like it's the same as going to like Mexico and wearing a sombrero, and like you say, pulling it down really and being like, well, that's what they do here as a tourist. That would be weird, right? But I know every time I've said something like that, people defend the beret, and fair enough, I get it. It is an iconic thing as well, very iconic. But not if you're in a group of 8 and you're all wearing it for a Bucks weekend.
It's mostly in the Basque Country this time.
That's where it's meant to be, right? Yeah, yeah.
That's where I'm from, so that's why for me it doesn't strike me as
Do you wear them? Do you wear them?
No.
Never?
But my stepbrother does. So.
Yeah. Does he look good?
Yeah, I think it does.
He might be watching.
On him. Okay. There is also one stereotype about Parisians being rude. Does it still have legs?
I think every country has rude people, right? Including Paris, definitely. I saw 2 yesterday. That's true. But I think a really large part of it is a misunderstanding with language. And I'll give you a really, really clear example of this. I was in a cafe with some Anglophone people recently, and a waiter came up to us. They heard we were speaking English, and he just said, I'm listening to you. And I was like, what a weird thing to say. Like, that's so direct and it seemed really rude. And the people I was with thought the same thing. And then I reflected, in French it would be quite normal to say, je vous écoute, which means
just translated, yes.
And he maybe mistranslated it into a slightly ruder kind of thing. And then on top of that,
he was ready to take your order.
Exactly. So if anything, and I was probably like, where'd that come
from? He came across as rude, but he probably didn't mean to.
And I didn't, but I could have very easily been like, why are you talking to me like that? You know, I'm being friendly with you. So it's a misunderstanding. And then on top of that, I do think that a lot of people come here, and whether they're too shy or they don't realize that they should be at least trying to say bonjour. And I can compare that to going into a shop in Australia or America or whatever. If you don't say bonjour to the guy in the bakery in France, it's the equivalent of going into a cafe in Sydney and just slapping the guy on the cheek. And then when they're rude back to you, you don't realize you started it.
That is definitely a thing. You know, at my bakery, where I go every day, like when they see customers, French or not, they don't say bonjour, merci, au revoir. They say, and they tell it to me, like, they consider it rude. I mean, they're used to it, but, like, they don't like it.
Yeah. It's happened to me twice, where twice in 12 years, so I think it's okay. Every 6 years, that's all right. Where I walk into a bakery or something, and I say something quick, like, vous fermez à quelle heure? And they say, bonjour. And I'm like, I can't believe I was just trying to be quick, but they'll call you out on it. And fair enough, I think it's really nice to value manners like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think this whole rude thing does have legs. I had a woman yesterday who was extraordinarily rude to me and slammed the book shut that I was buying and pushed it across the counter. And there was no reason for it, but I think a lot of it is a misunderstanding.
You mentioned you have kids too, right? And did you or do you experience some funny, well, let's say the funniest cultural clashes you may have had or experienced raising a child actually in a French environment.
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's opened up a whole new world to me, just in that now creche and school is part of my life. Seeing how all that works is brand new to me. Seeing the menu of my 2-year-old at creche, the weekly menu that they put up is 100% better than what I eat. 100%. They have cheese of the day
So
every day.
maybe we should go back to preschool.
When I went in there, when they were starting, the first week, they make you stay in there for the first couple of hours, and they had lunch. And my 2-year-old, they were like, does she eat cheese? I was like, she's never had cheese before, not like this. And there was a big chunk of camembert or something. She didn't touch it, and I was looking at it. And I said to the teacher, I was like, if she's not going to eat it, can I eat that cheese? I was like, this is great food in here. But otherwise, culturally, the language thing is great, because my 5-year-old now speaks French, not better than me, but he pronounces it better than me. And so I was buying something the other day, and I would have said something like, merci, like that. And he goes, Daddy. And I was like, what? He goes, it's not merci, it's merci. And I was like, that's the first word I learned in French. I can pronounce it, thank you very much. He's like, no, you can't. So
wow.
He's already got me.
How old is he?
5. He's not even 5, he's about to be 5. But fair enough, he's got the pronunciation perfectly, because he's at a French school.
Do you get to say that back when he speaks English a bit off?
Until he gets it perfect, I will do that all the time. I'll be like, that's not past tense, what are you talking about? But no, I mean, he'll triumph over me very quickly with these languages, yeah.
Oh, well.
Unfortunately.
There's a word, I don't exactly know how to translate it, which is flâner.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of wandering, but maybe a bit in a romantic way.
Yeah.
And we're kind of obsessed with that. I mean, the French.
Yeah.
With that, the art of just wandering aimlessly.
Yep.
Around, and compared to most Anglo-Saxon countries, which are, well, quite the opposite, obsessed with productivity and efficiency, I'd say. Yeah. How do you manage nowadays? I mean, did your vision change? Because obviously you come from Australia, I think. So, well, you may have come from this kind of culture, kind of want like a busy bee, I suppose. And so you see all those people wandering aimlessly around.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I love that word, and I think it's untranslatable. We don't have a word that matches it. But like wandering aimlessly is a really good 2-word translation of it.
Yeah, but it sounds a bit negative.
It doesn't sound cool. Like Flâner is such a beautiful word. And I think Australia, we're really laid back, probably too laid back, that's me as well. But I think here, it's not just to walk around aimlessly. They do it, or you do it, like an hour and a half lunch break with wine and cooked food is normal. And when I moved here, I was working as a journalist, and I would eat a pre-prepared sandwich at my desk, and the French people couldn't believe it. They would look at me with disgust almost. And I think if I were to try and break it down and understand why, I think here there's a lot to see if you go for a mindless, aimless walk. Whereas in a lot of the other cities in the whole known universe, there might not be much to see. Like the Seine River in Paris is beautiful from every angle. The Marais is beautiful. Montmartre, like this stuff is, there's something wrong with it if you can't appreciate a walk there. But I'm not going to name any other cities, but some cities are pretty ugly. You know, you don't want to go you want to get home. People drive there because they don't want to be walking around. And this city and a lot of the country too is just so rich. And so with culture of like eating or having a coffee or having a conversation or walking, it's because you can take a long time doing it because there's so much to get out of it compared to some places where it might not be the same. I mean, there's like in Australia, like Sydney is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but it's a new city as well in terms of how everything's built. So it's all really different, but there's just this, there's so much to drink up here, and I think it's easy for people to exactly do that, to take a sample of it.
Yeah, we talked about it, like Paris being a 1,000-years-old city, like more than that, like a couple thousand years old, and pretty much all of France is. And so sometimes, I mean, that's why I was telling you, I'm still learning every single time I talk with someone. She is sharing his vision of France or his angle, and I'm learning new stuff. And it seems like I'm constantly discovering, despite being raised here, like a new side of France that is completely or sounds foreign to me.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so deep, and it goes way back, like again, thousands of years old. So, and we're not even talking about the French history and stuff like this. So Oh yeah, I do understand. And so, well, we have a lot of words around that, like chiner as well, which is like kind of flâner but for shopping.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we do also have very specific words, weird ones, like where we have a word for when you kill someone by throwing him out of the window.
Seen this, yeah.
Defenestrer.
Yeah. It's a handy
So we
word.
like words.
It's a handy word. We're on one of the higher floors here. I'm a bit worried that you mentioned that word here.
Yeah, it's kind of a warning shot. No. But okay, so this is, where do you get your inspiration? Because you've been around, you've posted so much content, and yet you still find new inspiration, new topics you talk about. So where do you find all this?
I think if you look at any street in this city, even this street that we're on right now, there's probably at least 10 stories on this street that I don't know about, right? And then if you take any building, this one that we're in, it seems like there's a lot going on in this building, right? And then what was going on in this building before that? And then what's going to happen here in the future? So you just take any random building. I don't even mean a cafe or a museum, just anything. I'll give you an example. The building I used to live in Montmartre, a couple years ago, I just started researching it to see what had happened there. And it turned out that 100 years ago or whatever, the local mayor lived there. And he wrote a song, you know the song Le Temps de Cerise, you know this?
Oh yeah, Le Temps de Cerise.
That was written in the building I used to live in, right? Apparently. Whether it's true or not, right? Yeah, history. So my history was living there and telling my stories and whatever I did there, writing books or whatever, making podcasts. That guy had a history there as well, and we're in the same, maybe even the same room.
Oh,
so
amazing.
In terms of finding stories, I think you can find many in just one building and many in just one person. So I really think there's endless stories in this city, and if I ever do run out, tomorrow's a new day and there's endless stories happening tomorrow as well.
100% relate with that.
Yeah.
It seems like every building has a story. They're hundreds of years old each. Well, this one, the name of the street is like an astronomer, and so there's always something.
And where does that take you? That might take you to the observatory in Paris, which I once did a story inside. The big observatory near Luxembourg Gardens. What happens there? Do they still use it anymore? It just has a knock-on effect, and the more people I meet, the more doors I go through, the more doors seem to open as well. You know,
Right.
you and I could do this interview right again at the end, and you ask me all different questions, and we'll have a whole different set of stories. So I think there's so many stories out there if you dare to dig for them.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's worth a lifetime.
Yeah.
But if you were forced to be out of Paris, but to move out of Paris, but stay in France, which region or places or cities do you think you'd go to?
Easy. Provence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, we just bought a house down there as well. But I love it.
I was about to say, why is that?
Do you know the town L'Île-sur-la-Sorgue?
No,
You mentioned
maybe.
Chiner, right? Which
Okay,
is
yeah.
like, there's a restaurant there called Chiner, and it's antiques. It's an antique. I'm not even a big antique guy, really, but it's like one of the biggest antique fairs in the world there. There's like 500 antique shops. And it's a little town with the Sorgue River, which runs around like this. And this charming old town.
Oh, and so it's in the middle.
So that's why they call it Lille, you know? So it's like an island. And it's kind of my happy place. So if you're going to...
from Paris?
What have I done to be kicked out of Paris, though, in this fictional situation? But hopefully it's not
I
too
don't know,
serious.
maybe there's an angry mob or something.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because it can happen in France, you know, like we like to protest.
It happens regularly, I've noticed. But yeah, Provence is lovely. Even if I didn't have a house down there, I really love it.
We can't make that an official Olympic sport because it needs to have more than one country doing it.
That's true.
But otherwise...
You know another good Olympic sport you guys would have? People watching.
People watching.
Sitting on the cafe terrace and watching the people. You guys are really good at that.
We like doing that.
Yeah. It's a good one, yeah.
It's actually funny you mentioned that because I remember as a kid, I was like, what are those people doing? Asking my parents.
Yeah.
You're seeing all those guys in cafe for hours.
Yeah, they're watching us.
Yeah, they're just waiting, watching.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's what we were talking about, this mentality of soaking it up, because there's something to soak up as well.
yeah, no, well, taking the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's one of the most underrated, because we talked about like the overrated, overhyped, but underrated, well, let's say touristic spot in the city that you think generally would deserve a bit more love or attention?
I'll give you one, and if you think it's too popular, I'll go more niche, okay?
Okay.
So firstly, I think the Petit Palais. Do you think
Okay.
that's already popular?
I don't think people who are not from Paris know about that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that's wondrous, that place. I think it's magnificent.
But
Firstly,
it's right in front of the Grand Palais.
yeah,
which
but
they may
people
know
don't
about.
really go. I don't know. I think if you ask the 100 tourists who are coming here, are you going to go to the Petit Palais? I think most
That
would
might
say.
not be on the list.
I
Yeah.
don't think they'd say that they'd go. But just the build, forget everything
the building.
inside it.
Oh, yeah.
The building, I could go there when it's empty and just walk through the halls and see that little cafe. Disgusting coffee, but beautiful cafe. I would do that every single day. But I'm sure there's some of your listeners and viewers are thinking, I knew about that. Do you want me to take it a step deeper?
Well, I was about to take you on this one. Like,
Okay.
what's the more niche one?
Way more niche is the archives, the archives.
Oh,
Do you know this?
Archives Nationales.
Yeah, exactly. In the 3rd arrondissement. Which
I've been there once. Yeah.
Once, exactly. It's not something that people tend to pop into. And I pointed out, I do walking tours in the 4th, so we see it across the road. And I say, archives might sound boring to people. And I can totally appreciate that. People might be like, why do I want to look at archives? But firstly, the archives are things like Napoleon's will. You see his will on this thing, Marie Antoinette's diary kind of thing.
Like handwriting. And
Exactly, which is cool. But even if you strip that building as well, it's like a mini Versailles. I probably shouldn't even be talking about
Yeah,
it.
the
'cause
architecture
it's nice
is-
that
yeah,
it's so
no.
quiet in there. But and then upstairs, if it's open, it's like a gilded version of downstairs. And it's opulent, decadent, empty. It's always empty until we
a lot
talked
of things
about
are opulent in Paris, though.
Sure.
Especially buildings, I mean.
That's
you know.
true, but not a lot of free, open museums seem to be, that are unknown, are as opulent as that.
Right.
With a great garden out the front, too, that most people don't check out.
Talking about opulence, I'm from a place called Biarritz.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is where Napoleon III, his wife, used to live.
Okay.
Like, for example, their summer home was like a gigantic palace, which is now
bet.
like one of France's top palaces. And you're like, they had different standards back then when they built all of that.
What is it now? Is it like a museum or something?
Well, no, it's an hotel, like a palace.
I got to check that out.
Yeah, it's actually cool because it's not Parisian prices palace. I was like, you
That's
can knock
good.
off a zero.
Yeah. Oh, good. My next step.
So
That's the other thing. If I run out of
it's
ideas,
expensive, but cheaper compared to,
if I run out of ideas, there's plenty of cities in this town with things to offer as well. So
And it's Australian compatible, a lot
Yeah.
of Australian there.
they'll understand my accent.
We're not very good at that. But English, yes. English, yes. So we talked about an underrated one, or like a one that deserved more, but like a touristic spot, not necessarily, like a thing that's usually on everyone's list that you think like shouldn't be.
Can Angelina count for that as well?
You really
I
don't
really
want.
want to hammer them into the ground. No, okay, overrated.
So like you've busted any chances I might have had with an Angelina.
If we think of a sponsorship, I can answer it differently if you want. No, I think, honestly, I think I can answer more broadly is if you've got something that everyone's talking about, chances are it's going to be too crowded. So, like, I always tell people, like, a good way to
like
answer...
Eiffel Towers and stuff like that.
I mean, Eiffel Tower, like, if you're coming to Paris for the first time, I can't say to you, it's overrated, don't go. Same with the Mona Lisa, I can't say that. If, like, what I tend to say on my podcast is I'm way more interested in people's second trip to Paris. The first trip, I think you should go to the Eiffel Tower. I think you should line up for it, get to the top. I think you should go and see the Mona Lisa and elbow people out of the way to take. I think you should do it. And hopefully, from my perspective, you'll like everything else and want to come back and see that stuff, because that's when the fun begins. Once you've ticked off, if I have family or friends visiting and they say, let's go up the Eiffel Tower today, I'll be like, you do that. Get that out of your system, and then I'll show you the cool stuff. So I think what I tell people is don't blindly follow what everyone else is telling you to, especially on social media. Like if you're seeing some TikToker who you don't even know telling you to go and
might not be genuine as well.
Have a falafel over there. How do you know you trust their taste? Like go and find your own. Some of the best stories I've ever done on my podcast are where I found someone random on the street and started talking to them. And they got nothing to sell, they got nothing to promote, they got a story or a wild story or whatever. I had talked to one lady who revealed that she, this is what she said to me, that she put some released crocodiles into the Canal Saint-Martin. And I was like, this is the best story I've ever heard. And we turned it into a children's book. I love that story.
Like living ones.
That's what she said, whether you believe it or not. But like that took me down. They found crocodiles in Paris before, So like that goes back to the amount of stories in this city, But to bring it back to your question, is don't treat this city like a bucket list. Like seek out other things. Find smaller museums. Go for a walk. And if you really don't believe me, please do me the favor of at least leaving half a day on your itinerary totally blank, with nothing to see, and just walk around, walk down streets, look in shops, talk to people. I guarantee you, when you get home, that's the day you'll talk to people about. People, you don't get back to Chicago and they don't go, what did you think of the Mona Lisa? No one cares. And you're not even going to talk about it. You'll talk about the lady that put the crocodiles in the car. I guarantee it.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those who might be considering a bit of a longer term move, let's call them expats or immigrants, what is the number one thing that you think they need to accept about France? Because we talked about all kind of touched base on cultural differences, you know, the way that what they say, what they think they're saying, and what you hear and stuff like this. What do you think they need to accept before moving to France or before buying like this one-way ticket there?
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think before you move here, you have to accept, firstly, that you need French. You need French. I don't even care if anyone disagrees with me. Like,
yeah, you can get by at first.
You can get by, but who wants to get by in life? What kind of life is that, getting by? I wish I spoke better French, but like once you, I do speak fluently, but it's like unlocking levels. You get way more out of you, even on a very basic level. You get more out of your visit to the bakery if you do it in French. You just get way more out of it, and you never know where it'll lead. And then amplify that by everything when you go down the process of buying different things than bread, right? And then the second thing is, I think you have to accept, especially as a foreigner, that it is hard. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And I've done lots of things here. I've bought a house. I've put kids through school. I started a company. All these things, even from opening a bank account, all this stuff can be really hard. And my biggest sort of hack has been accepting that it's hard and knowing that it's hard and knowing that whatever I need that day, I might, or I accept that I won't get it. So if I'm going into the bank because I need a document, I just go, or even worse, something to do with taxes, I'm like, I'm not going to get this. Let's see what happens. And so then you get in, and when they say, oh, it's not possible or whatever, then you either fight for it.
C'est pas possible, we like to say that.
Yeah. And the trick is, it usually is. It usually is possible. What's all that about? I still haven't figured that one out. But
it's a made-up sentence, we like saying.
Yeah, I heard that French, and I believe it. A French no often means convince me. So if you go into the bank and ask something, they say no, they mean
maybe
make me do it, and I'll do it. And yeah.
Would you say? Well, again, I'm biased. I like to think that we like foreigners.
Yeah.
But would you say that? Do you feel like when they understand you're not French, like they're kind of drawn towards you to kind of, they're curious about you?
Definitely for, well, I'm biased because I'm Australian, and people like Australians.
Yeah, but yeah.
In France, people find Australians interesting. I know it because I've met so many French people. And
that's just because of Hugh Jackman.
Well, I don't know, maybe.
No, I'm kidding.
But I know it's certainly not the same experience for every country. I'm sure it's different for all of us. But I think one good tip that I have, there's a sentence I sometimes say. You know, there's the phrase "Je parle français comme une vache espagnole."
Oh yeah, I use it a lot. Well, we say for English, il parle anglais comme une vache espagnole.
There you go. So what I say to people often, and especially in the early years, is I'll say "Je parle français comme une vache australienne," right? So to translate,
they would get it,
right? So for people who don't speak French, I say that I do a little play on the idea of speaking such bad. So you say in French, I speak French like a Spanish cow for whatever reason. I say an Australian cow, and what that does in terms of being a foreigner here, immediately they go, okay, this guy he's kind of fun, a little bit fun. He's playing on wordplay, which they love here.
With an idiom.
Yeah, with an idiom, which is like next level. And also, oh, he's Australian. So I give them a lot to work with.
Oh, yeah, right.
And if they want, they might go, oh, you're Australian, I love Hugh Jackman. And then we become a friend. Or more likely, my niece went there for a summer or whatever. So, yeah, if you're a foreigner and you dare to sort of play that game a little bit, it seems to work. But I can only speak as an Australian.
No, that's actually, well, I can relate with a lot of stuff you said because, well, I share your views. But it kind of, thank you for confirming my bias, though.
Yeah, there you go.
So Oliver, I could go on and on because, like, you're a wealth of information. Thank you for sharing the real magic. Before I wrap it all up, if people want to follow you, connect with you, or just get in touch, where can they find you?
I think the easiest is to search the Eiffel Tower on whatever you like the most. Spotify, Substack, YouTube, whatever. And then go in where you like being. If you love podcasts, listen to the podcast. If you love walking tours, do the walking tours. But go on your favorite channel and search the words. That's where you should start.
Well, Oliver, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, perfect. We will have all the links in the description below. If you love this deep dive with a true Paris veteran, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. What is your absolute favorite spot in Paris? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.